Well, good morning. It's Tuesday morning, and we continue with Matthew 26. We're going to read 17, 18, and 19 today. On the first day of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus, saying, "Where will you have us prepare for you to eat the Passover?" He said, "Go into the city to a certain man and say to him, 'The teacher says, my time is at hand. I will keep the Passover at your house with my disciples.'" And the disciples did as Jesus had directed them, and they prepared the Passover. We see a couple of things here. First of all, we see that Jesus and the disciples were, in fact, observant Jews. We get the idea that Jesus kind of snubbed his nose at the Jewish authorities and didn't really pay attention to what they wanted him to do or what they said was required. And that's not really the case. He did object to a lot of their rules and regulations, but he was observant. They kept the feasts and things and did what you're supposed to do, including the Passover meal, which was the big deal, the big event in any given year. And so Jesus says, "Yeah, we'll eat it at this guy's house." And growing up, I always thought, well, they just went into the city and found this guy and said, "The teacher's coming to your house." And he said, "Oh, okay." As I reflect on it more, I think what's really going on here is that Jesus knew this guy. And they didn't bother to record his name in the scripture, but he said, "Go to see this man, this certain man, this guy over there with the red shirt, and the glasses, and tell him we're coming to your house to eat the Passover, and he'll understand and he'll be ready." All of which says to me that Jesus had a much wider circle of friends and acquaintances than we usually think. I mean, we read the scripture and we see the 12 all the time, the 12 disciples, and we think, well, those were Jesus' people. In fact, there were many more disciples than simply 12, because some places it does say the 12 and the rest of the disciples, or the 12 and the disciples and the women. So there's a larger crowd that follows him around. And of course he knew them, or knew some of them. I suspect that he was friendly with some of the Pharisees that were following him around and questioning him and asking questions and trying to trap him sometimes. So Jesus had this wider circle of friends and acquaintances, and he knows this guy from somewhere. And he says, "Go tell him we're going to come to his house and eat the Passover." So it's almost like it's been prearranged, but now we're on our way. And the disciples go and prepare the meal, which means roasting a lamb and all these things, certain recipes and certain procedures that you have to do. Roasting the lamb, preparing the other foods that you eat, and getting everything ready. It's not simply a meal that you just gather and eat. It's like Thanksgiving. You have your turkey, and you have your cranberry, and you have your dressing or your stuffing, and you have all these things. And somebody carves the turkey, and you do all these things in a certain way because it's Thanksgiving, and that's what we do. And the Passover had some of that ritual element to it. It was very prescribed, either in the scriptures or in their oral traditions, the way that they interpreted the scriptures that everybody done for hundreds of years. Or my grandmother always did it this way, so I'm going to do it this way. That kind of thing. So Jesus and his disciples go to eat the Passover. There's a bit of a debate as to when this happened. If the Passover was on a Friday, that Friday would have been treated like a Sabbath, and then the Sabbath would have been the next day, and then the next day would have been the first day of the week. So this could have been Thursday night. Some argue that it might have been probably Wednesday night and Wednesday, Thursday, there seems to be a little dispute between the other Gospels and the Gospel of John about was it Passover day that they did this or the day before Passover, when he was crucified. And so there's all this debate that goes on among scholars, but we don't have to really pay much attention to that, just to know that Jesus eats the Passover with his disciples, and he's clearly the leader at the table. If you've ever been to a Seder, you know that someone sits at the head of the table and leads the rituals, and the other people follow. Jesus does that leadership, and we'll see how how he reinterprets that as he goes through the meal. We'll do that in the next couple of days. So for today, Jesus had this wider circle of friends, and he is an observant Jew when it comes down to the end of it. So look at your circle of friends. You obviously know people outside of our congregation or outside of the church, outside of whatever church you might go to, wherever you live. And but include those people. Don't just shun them and say, well, they're not important because I only have my Christian friends or my friends from church. It's okay to have a much wider circle of friends, and still be observant and act like a Christian, instead of sort of changing your stripes wherever, depending on who you're with. So let's think about that today and ponder how our witness is from moment to moment. Tomorrow we will get in the thick of it as he's eating with his disciples and he says, one of you will betray me. See you then.